Pegasus 1-1 to ATC control, over. Pegasus 1-1 is spooling up their engines. Pegasus 1-1 requesting entry onto taxiway Tango 1, over. Pegasus 1-1 copies, we are moving on to taxiway Tango 1, over. Pegasus 1-1 to aircraft control, over. Pegasus 1-1 is holding short of main runway 9, requesting approach. Pegasus 1-1 copies, we are moving on to main runway 9, taking off east. Pegasus 1-1 to aircraft control, we have cleared the runway, we are moving on to green heading. I say again, green heading. Okay then. I have a hostile town to the left, and I also had one on the right back there. Basically I couldn't do much about the right one, so I just kept an eye out to see if any missiles were coming, or any lock-ons, but so far so good. We're going to fly this mission on contour to nap of the earth, depending on the scenario of the place. Trying to keep my approaches as masked as possible, keeping exposure to a minimum. So I'm not following the green line perfectly, because as in any mission you adapt to it, you don't follow it perfectly, because that only works in theory. I'm going to keep my approach here pretty low and pretty fast, going up the coast. If the mission had any information on any vessels or boats, basically, we would not have gone this route, but because we do not, we will take it, because it masks our left totally to anything up above, so it's a really effective route. Going about 250 to 60, a bit over sometimes, depends. I like to keep it as fast as possible so I don't stay around basically when the rockets start flying. Okay, I am moving on to inland again, because that's the, I suppose, correct approach. I'll try and keep it as tidy as possible as always. We'll have an enemy town on the left up here. We'll bypass that pretty easily by flying a no or contour flight. You can see on the map here we have a city to the right. We'll get low as possible, as fast as possible. Exposure time there was a bit over 3 seconds, but then again, it should be fine, because we don't want the left city, which is a lot bigger, get a lock on us, because yeah, that's how it goes, I guess. Keeping it low here, dodging some trees, normal stuff. Basically putting my body between the trees and the blades just over the top. Again, pretty smooth sailing from here on. It's nothing declared hostile, but again it's a hostile AO, so you never know. Hence we'll keep it low and pretty fast. Again, deviating a bit from the green line, because it will never be perfect unless there is a significant corridor which has a lot of AA. Then you'll basically stay perfectly on it, but for this training mission it isn't. So we'll shape it towards what we need, or what is the best approach basically. Again, we are flying pretty close to some military compounds and cities, because for this exercise they are friendly. If it had been a totally unknown area, we would probably have gone around most of the cities, because that's a high AA threat, but at the moment it isn't. Okay, so we are getting closer to the AO. As you can see, the military base is basically inside the mountain more or less, in a little valley. We'll keep our airspeed around 220 to 30 for this last leg. And by the time we hit that little mountain ridge ahead, we'll start flaring and get ready for our final approach into military base, whatever the hell it says. Selva, yeah, that's one. Okay, so I am losing on the collective, I am pulling up. As you can see, there it is, it's a beauty. Start flaring, nothing too crazy. Starting to scan for a spot to put us down. I can see a little courtyard there, it should hold us pretty well. Going around so I can easily enter it. Again, keeping an eye on the trees below me so I don't pierce myself, because that would fucking suck. Again, spatial awareness is kinda must on these kind of things. I know I'm pretty high, and I know the houses is pretty high, and I'm basically just putting her down where it needs to be. So if you go to third person, you can see I have plenty of space behind me, plenty of space to my left and right. And yeah, it's a kind of tight squeeze. You won't have space for two of these. But again, in this training exercise we only have one, so that should be fine. If we had to fit two, we could probably go 90 degrees and we could possibly get two here. It would be a tight squeeze again, but it's fine. Okay, once you have unloaded all the guys, we can spin up again. Pegasus 1-1 touching off, and then I suppose we could go back the same route we came in. Normally in a real situation you would never go the same route twice, but for this training exercise it should be fine. Again, this is not declared a hostile area, but you can never be too safe basically, unless you are in a totally controlled green zone. We'll fly pretty low and pretty fast. If you have to fly transport with undersling stuff, of course you have to go higher, but then again you will have to go another route basically to keep it as safe as possible. This is more of a combat oriented approach, I guess you could call it. Try and get our speed up a bit, roughly 250 or so. Because it really helps when you get close to enemy positions, because you want to minimize the exposure time as much as possible. So keeping your speed up really helps with that. At the same time you don't have to overspeed, because then maneuvers will be pretty hectic, and this is really not a bird to do hectic stuff in. You need to plan out everything in well advance, or else you'll basically hit a building or a tree or something and well die, so no one wants that, do we? Again, keeping the terrain features to mask as much as possible of my aircraft. Again, I'm doing pretty fast down here because I have enemy settlements to the right soon, and I really like my life, so even if it's a virtual one, I'll go Napfjord and counterflight, as I've mentioned before, depending on the situation basically. I'll go full throttle here for a while, because we have a pretty open space ahead of us, with the enemy settlement to the left. Get as much speed as possible and keep it as low as possible without getting dangerous, because again, at the end of the day you still have to get back to base. No, it should be out of reach for most AA systems, but just to keep it safe. We'll crest over these hills and go back out to the ocean. Follow the cliffs for a while again. We can ease back on the throttle again, because we are out of danger for the time being. In a real operation you would probably just go the coastal route, basically all the way up to your airfield, but that's going to cost a lot of dollars to pay for the fuel, so we'll go inland again and follow the same route we came in. Keeping an eye on our speed every now and then, because doing all of this contour and no flight, you probably are going to bleed a lot of speed, more so if you would go really low, so keep it in mind. You don't want to go under 200 at any point basically, because that's sitting duck at that point with this huge aircraft. Again, keeping it tidy onto the green slope. It's pretty close here to enemies, so we'll stay on it pretty hard. We have an enemy town again to the left there, so we'll have to keep that in mind. We'll go really low there because we kinda have to, because no one likes getting blown the fuck up, so once we have passed these two small islands, which should be safe, then we can go a bit out this way. Get out of range of most of the systems in use on this kind of AO, and have that small island behind us to cover entry. Then we'll bank hard in and try to get into a holding pattern basically, and eventually land. When you get into an airport, or at least a busy airport, you should always try to stay off the holding pattern, because the last thing you want is a friendly guy in a holding pattern basically hitting you head on. It can happen, and it will happen if you do not pay attention to it. So stay out of it and enter it in an orderly fashion from the right direction. Pegasus 1-1 to ATC control, over. Pegasus 1-1 requesting entry onto holding pattern. Copy that ATC, we are going into upwind in 10 seconds. Out. So basically the last leg of this flight is just get on the holding pattern. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's totally under dot, as long as you keep your height basically, because you want to keep an eye out, because other people can be in this holding pattern with you. So again, you don't want a mid-air collision, no one does. Remember to keep stating to the ATC control on the ground where you're going at any time. Pegasus 1-1 going on to crosswind. I'll basically just tell them every time you return, more or less. And with the correct place. I can see I'm all over the fucking place, so it's fine. Pegasus 1-1 going into downwind. And again, as my CEO keeps telling me, keep the goddamn air height up, because it's important. If you're not using a throttle, that should be pretty easy. If you are, then, well, get used to getting, well, fucking up basically. Yeah. Okay, so we are getting ready to get into the last leg here. We go on to base and then final, and then basically land. Pegasus 1-1 going into base. Base leg is basically the last before we go to final. Pegasus 1-1 going into final and landing. I just lost way too much speed there, that's my bad. And I'm way over the place, fucking hell. Totally not used to this big ass bird yet. But she's fine. Again, keep your airspeed up until you hit the actual runway edge. then starts flaring when you are over the tarmac, like so. But gentle up, you don't want to get too much speed or too much air at this altitude. So just do a gentle fucking stop, and yeah, that should be it basically. Pegasus 1-1 is touchdown. We are going off to taxiway Sierra 2. So yeah, then you basically just have to taxi. HC normally can see you of course, but you can say it anyway. Pegasus 1-1 going on to taxiway Tango 1. Then just follow the yellow lines basically until you are ready to turn off to wherever you turn off. Pegasus 1-1 heading off to the grass to park. So yeah, if you can, keep your nose to the taxiway, not to the main runway, because that's not where you want to go, and then you don't have to maneuver too much when you have to take off again. So just put it down gently, and that's basically it. Always remember to do not leave the aircraft before the main rotors have well, shut down. In case anything happens, you are on the stick and you can correct it as needed. And that's basically it.